Painful, disastrous, an utter train wreck. You guys know what I'm talking about. But that's the sentiment, really, the words from top Democrats, including folks in the White House. That's what they're using to describe President Joe Biden's performance at the CNN debate on Thursday night. Okay, was it that bad? The answer is, yeah, I thought it was pretty bad. There's no way to spin it. Stuart Stevens is there. Stuart, I'm going to introduce you in a second, but let me just get these thoughts out. And then you have a wealth of knowledge and experience. I'm sure you're going to disagree with me, but I think President Biden failed to clear this very, very low bar that all of those MAGA Republicans, including the president, conservative media, that they set for him, basically saying that he was going to keel over on stage. He had this raspy voice. It was a halting voice. It was meandering answers. He was mumbling. It was confusing, body language. He didn't inspire the country except for pity, I think, and pity and panic. Minutes into the debate, Democratic officials were already discussing potential paths forward, what they were going to do about Joe Biden. Should he be at the top of the ticket? Are they being melodramatic about this is a question. And is this a real, true Democrat or American crisis for democracy? Personally, I feel that there is, I shouldn't say no chance of coming back from this, but I think the chances of coming back are pretty slim to none. From a crisis management perspective, I think Biden has no chance but to release his delegates at the convention, the upcoming convention. We have to learn the lesson, especially Democrats, I should say, the lesson of the late and great Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's not too late to correct course, right? I don't believe. I do believe it's not too late to correct course. I think if you go on even another week or so, it may be too late to correct course. It's going to be painful. So as I welcome you back to the Don Lemon Show, I am glad that you're here, but clearly this may not be the show that makes you happy. But I have to tell you, this is time for some reflection, especially from not only from the Democratic Party, but from America. Okay. So I'm joined now. I have the very good fortune of being joined by a wonderful guest to hash things out. Author and the former Republican strategist at the Lincoln Project, advisor Stuart Stevens. He is with me today. Stuart, thank you for joining.
Thanks for asking me to the party.
Yeah, I know you're probably going to slam me because you may not agree with me, but I have to tell you, I was sitting around with a bunch of folks and quite frankly, after the sort of, if you want to call it shock of the Biden performance was sort of set in, they said, you know what? I'm actually not feeling so depressed or dire about it. I think this is an opportunity. It's almost like after you said, how am I going to tell this person, give this person the bad news? How am I going to tell my wife or my spouse that I want a divorce? How am I going to talk to my kid about all of this? And then, or how do I fire this person? And then once you do it, there's a sense that sets in that says, you know what? I did the right thing. And now we can move on to the winning plan, whatever that may be, right or wrong.
Look, I think one of two people is going to be president of the United States, Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This whole kind of fantasy football scenario that we're going to draft somebody else and put them in, I just don't understand it. To me, if I were in the Democratic Party, the word I would be sending out is it's easy to be for your guy when he has a great night, and it's but you prove yourself and what you stand for when you have a bad night. I don't think that the issue terrain of this race changed at all. I mean, Don, if I just woke you up in the middle of the night, 5, 6, 7 years ago and said, look, Don, a guy from Queens who's out on bail, who's a convicted felon, is running for president, who is bragging about getting rid of Roe v. Wade, who wants to cut taxes more for billionaires, who said in front of the American people that he didn't have sex with a porn star. And he thinks America is the worst country in the world. How do you think he's doing? I don't think any of us would say he's great. I think that this is very, very early in this race. I was in the spin room, as you probably were too, when Kerry thought he'd won after the first debate in Bush. I was there with Romney when a lot of people said, well, Romney's won. Both proved to be not true. And those were much later in the race. When you're working campaigns, you always ask yourself, would you rather be my guy or the other guy? I'd rather be Biden today.
Stuart, I would say on paper that you're right. Just as I would say to people who were listening to the Nixon Kennedy debate, if you're listening, I would say, you know what, you're right. Nixon won. But if you were watching on the television, clearly Nixon lost. Kennedy won. I don't think last night was really about substance in truth, obviously, because Trump lied most of the time. I think America needed to see someone who was strong. They needed that, sort of, animalistic thing that we have inside of us. It's like we need a strong person to take care of us, and we need to know that the big guy has our back and is going to lead us forward. Now, as non-intellectual as that may seem, it's the reality that, and listen, don't get me wrong, I love Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden will save us from democracy. I believe personally that because he had a bad night, or maybe he's not the person he was 5, 10, 15 years ago, it doesn't mean that he can't be a good president. I'm being realistic about how America feels about it. I think on the other side of another Biden administration or term, we will have an intact democracy. We wouldn't on the other side of a Trump administration. Donald Trump clearly won the debate last night. Whether it was by fact or by fiction, he was the clear winner by all the polling, by all of America, except for the chattering class or the Democratic folks who are in, I should say, inside the Washington Beltway folks. America has Joe Biden has a problem, and Democrats have a problem, whether people want to realize it or not. I know those are harsh words, but that's how I feel. It was painful to watch.
Yeah, look, it was a bad night. I think,
and the difference between sorry, I hate to cut you off, but the difference between a Romney and an Obama or any of the other folks that you mentioned was that those people didn't lose their train of thoughts. They didn't stumble over their words. They didn't not finish sentences. They didn't end their responses 44 seconds with 44 seconds left on the clock and then struggle to come up with another thought so that they could finish that time. They didn't fail to push back on lies from their opponents. Even when Obama said to Romney, the 1980s called and they want their foreign policy back, Romney ended up being right about that, but it was a great line that Obama got in. Obama wasn't accurate about that, but he ended up winning the second debate. So I'm just saying, can we just be realistic about it and stop just because we may like Joe Biden?
yep.
Can we just be honest about
Look,
and not only last night but moving forward? Like it's not going to happen.
Oh, listen, I don't. This whole idea the Democrat Party's going to replace Joe Biden just baffles me. I don't really understand it. I'd like the rights to the Netflix series about a contested convention. I think it would be fascinating, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it should happen. I think that, look, Joe Biden has been a great president. So this idea that he is not competent to be president is absurd at face value because he's been a great president. He put together a coalition that's basically saving the world. And if he was someone who sat down in these meetings and didn't get respect and wasn't listened to and didn't have cogent points, that wouldn't happen. So, look, I think what's important for the Biden campaign, and I think they're good at this, this is very much like an extension of the moment when he had a really terrible press conference after the special counsel's report. And everybody, Ezra Klein, he should get out. Then he had a great State of the Union. It's like, oh, maybe he shouldn't get out. I think what they need to do is get about the business of continuing the campaign. They need to put together some big events and give Biden a chance to give a different image into people's minds. The Biden who was at Normandy, the Biden who was at Valley Forge. And I think that guy can win. So, look, at this time in 1992.
Do you really believe that, Stuart?
I do. No, I think Biden.
75% of Democratic voters, this is a CNN poll,
Yep.
want someone other than Biden in 2024.
Listen, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's such an odd question. Are you satisfied with what you have now? To say yes is a very un-American thing. We always want something better. When they introduce new cars, they don't go, "Hey, look, just as good as last year. We didn't change anything." We always want better. Of course you do. You know, this is why Cheesecake Factory has a 40-page menu. But when it comes down to it, it's going to be Biden or it's going to be Trump. And I think Trump has had terrible, terrible moments out there on the stage. I think he's going to continue to do those. And I think that there's another way to look at this. And as to me, Trump had a chance last night to reset his candidacy. He could have come and he could have said, "Look, this is what you're going to get. Here's an economic plan. I'm not going to cut taxes for billionaires. Here's what I'm going to do." And I think he could have done himself some a lot of good in that, but he didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we're about to watch the Olympics, and Americans are going to come into that stadium with the American flag. And so Donald Trump would say, "No, we're not supposed to cheer for that because we're the worst country in the world." It's just a very un-American, strange way of looking at the world. And I just don't think that a guy that no public school system in America would be legally allowed to hire as a teacher is going to be president of the United States.
Stuart, you should have been up on that debate stage last night. I'm just saying. And look, I hope you're right. Don't get me wrong. I know people are going to say, "My gosh,
you're not. I know you can't stand Donald Trump."
I hope you're right. Listen, I believe that Joe Biden is the commander-in-chief. He's in the office. He's doing the business of the American people every single day. I don't think he needed to prepare that much. I think they over-prepared him. He's trying to keep too much information in his head, too many numbers, too many specifics. They should have said, "Mr. President, these are the 3 or 4 things that you need to focus on last night. Whenever the question is, always get it back to this." And that's what Donald Trump did. 3 or 4 things: immigration, the wars, and he didn't really talk about a woman's right to choose that much. He actually skirted that, saying, bring it back to the states. I thought Biden had a very good answer when he says this is akin to taking the civil rights legislation and leaving that up to the states. So I thought he was right about that, but I thought he was over prepared. I'm not sure. Do you know who Richard Green is, the political consultant?
No.
I had Richard Green on last night. He talked about Biden's performance. He had very high hopes. This is what he said about Biden being over prepared. Watch this. First, okay, because Richard, we talked before, and you said you thought Joe Biden, the president of the United States, that he was going to do great. He was going to outperform expectations. What do you think?
I'm man enough to say I was completely wrong.
Oh,
I expected so much more from him. I said, where did all those days of preparation at Camp David go? He was saying the same stuff. He was mumbling. He wasn't strong. He didn't know how to counter the offense onslaught that was coming from Donald Trump. I mean, if this was a prize fight, he would have lost every single one of the 15 rounds.
Okay, and that's enough. We've heard enough.
I'm surprised.
So he is very pro-Biden, very anti-Trump, and he actually believes, I think he does, that there needs to be a pivot from Democrats. Go ahead, Stuart.
I just don't understand how that works. We're going to be like McGovern and Dump Eagleton. It's just, look, Joe Biden is president of the United States. He's a Democratic nominee. It's either going to be him or Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this race needs to be focused on. The guy had a lousy night. I've done a ton of debate preps. Everybody's a hero when it goes well, and everybody screwed up debate prep when it went bad.
Mm-hmm.
But look, what I do know is that anything that happens in June is very unlikely to affect a race that is in November. If there's 5 people in America that can tell us what led on the news last Wednesday, I'd like to know. I mean, that's just not how we are.
You think sorry, I'm going to let you finish your thought. Sorry about there's a delay.
I think that what's important is the Biden campaign just needs to get out there and prosecute Trump and make the case and get their guy in some settings where he will do well, as he's proven he can do well, and move on. I mean, a lot of times when you're in primaries and you're losing, like in a presidential race, you can't talk your way out of it. All you can do is go out and win. And that's what Biden did in 20. And I think that's what they need to do now.
That is what you're saying. And I'm sure a lot of people are hoping that that is the case. But inside the Democratic Party, there is panic. And you know that, right? They always say that Republicans fall in line and Democrats wet the bed, right? This is John King on CNN moments after the debate. This is what he's hearing from Democrats.
This was a game-changing debate in the sense that right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started to the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists, it involves elected officials, it involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say.
Okay, so you disagree with all of that, but is the panic inside the party real?
Well, I mean, look, you know far more about the Democratic Party than I do, but yes, I think it is. You know, there's this thing out there that Republicans do a better job of messaging. I don't really think that's true. I think it's easier to message to a Republican audience because it is a very homogeneous audience. You know, when we're out there, it's like putting on a concert for people that like one kind of music. The Democratic Party has people that like a lot of different kind of music. It's great weakness and it's great strength. But it makes sense to me. You know, one of the things that sort of really bothers me here is there's a group of these Obama insiders, right? That they will always be this one true pure love that they had in summer of 2008. It's love story. And everything else is going to be like your fourth or fifth marriage. And they should be rallying around Joe Biden. He defended their guy. He's going to be president of the United States, or Donald Trump's going to be president of the United States. So, you know, I think in campaigns, it's easy to be for them when you have a good night, and you have to prove yourself when you have a bad night.
Why doesn't it stick why don't the Trump lies stick as much as the Biden performance? This is Ben Glebe, who actually ran for president. He's a third-party candidate last time. And he's a comedian and also an activist. Watch this. We can't hear it.
My advisors gave me this number right before I walked on stage, which is not a way to have a fact that you've in any way vetted. He said, we bought the certain dog that can smell. That was one of his big accomplishments for drugs. That was not great either. He said, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, which, I mean, probably not downstairs, that's for sure. You have to be real smart to win a golf match, he said. You don't have to be smart to win a sporting activity. And so they both were not incredibly sharp, but.
Why doesn't it stick for Donald Trump? But I think people believe that because he doesn't have to speak in factual terms. He's a performer.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a double standard for Trump. And a lot of it is that the party stands behind Trump. You know, all of these people that I helped elect who prior to Trump wouldn't have lunch with Donald Trump. They know he's a pluperfect idiot, and they rally around him. And that is, to me, just sort of the collapse of the Republican Party. But a lot of people look at Donald Trump, I think, and they think, well, you know, he's kind of a weird guy. I don't know, what is this porn star stuff, and why does he keep getting, indicted? But hey, my governor's for him, and he must know him better, or she must know him better, so I guess he's okay. I thought that Gavin Newsom and Senator Warnock last night showed the way forward for how the Democratic Party needs to come together and fight this. You know, I mean, look, it's the Battle of Britain. You go, hey, look, we had a rough night, man. They shot all these planes down. Let's just we got to talk to these Germans. We got to work this out. Well, there's a lot of people in England that felt that. And I think that this is when you have to sort of ask yourself, how much are you invested in this?
Hold on to that Gavin. You mentioned Gavin Newsom. I want to talk to you about that. But I mean, if Ben Rhodes, right, tweeted last night, telling people that they didn't see what they saw is not the way to respond to this. And then you retweeted him and said, "I know for some of the Obama inner circle, there will never be another love like that great and pure love of that magic moment in 2008. But for Christ's sake, show a little character and fight for your guy." Listen, you felt that in the moment and you're still saying it now. So, you know, I hope.
I just think, look, I get that these Obama people, rightly so, extraordinary moment in American history, extraordinary campaign. There won't ever be anything like it. But Joe Biden was there. He was picked by Obama. He defended Obama. They should show a little loyalty.
Yeah.
And they should be about the business of, okay, I'm not saying this is a slam dunk. I'm not saying this is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, but I'm going to go out and make the case why Joe Biden should be president, not Donald Trump. And that's all this is. It's just a binary choice. And I think it's a real disappointing character flaw that a lot of the Obama inner circle can't just sort of toughen up and get out there and do the work for somebody that has been there for them every time.
The names who have been floated for people who you say, you believe that this is a fantasy, that Joe Biden, President Biden, I should say, will be replaced. He should relinquish his delegates and someone will replace him. Governor Gavin Newsom, California Governor Gavin Newsom has been mentioned along with the Vice President Kamala Harris, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Those are among the names that have been floated. Not realistic, you say, right? And not a smart thing to do?
I mean, I just don't see this would be a terrible thing to happen. So the Democratic Party is going to go, oops, whoops, sorry, guy had a bad debate. We're going to jerk him off. He's been a great president. I mean, I don't know what bothers people the most, record stock market or record low unemployment, the fact that we put together this international coalition to fight the largest ground war in Europe by a fascist dictator. But hey, forget all of that. Forget the largest infrastructure act in Public Works Act in history. Forget the fact that now you can get insulin for $33. Forget the fact that inhalers are cheaper. He had a bad night. So all of that is just out the window. And we're going to go pull somebody else in. Maybe they'll have a better night. I just think it's frivolous. It's silly.
So in our post debate panel last night, we had T.S. Madison on and brought up a very good point that they failed to even mention Project 2025. And they also hardly pressed Donald Trump for trying to steal the last election. Do you think it was a misstep by Joe Biden not to talk about that? Or was it a misstep by the moderators not to even bring that in? I was surprised that they didn't say, former President Trump, Project 2025, yada, yada, yada. What happened?
Look, it's a unending road when you get into criticizing moderators and saying we should have done it this way or that way.
I agree.
It's just so frustrating. It could have been a different kind of debate. Could have been worse. Could have been better. I don't think that really Donald Trump should be on the stage debating because the guy's a pathological liar, and our system is not equipped in the journalistic world. You know this far better than I. When the greatest good that we've always thought was objectivity. And that was based upon the fact that you'd have people of some good faith on both sides. And you don't now. I think that journalism has struggled with how to deal with this, well-intentioned, and they're still struggling. You call this guy a liar every time. Do you correct him every time? But I don't think that we can pretend that this is a normal election and go about conducting it like a normal election. And look, I spent decades pointing out flaws in the Democratic Party. I think a lot of those flaws are still there, but it's the only pro-democracy party in America. So, yes, there are a lot of things that you wish, as someone, you had been on stage, what you would have said. You wish you could have prepped them differently, and it could have come out that way. But ultimately, you're talking about 90 minutes, right? 90 minutes for a guy who has been in office since he was 29 years old, who you could ask the question, October 20, is Joe Biden going to be a good president? You don't know. I mean, the guy is, he's run for president, he's failed. Is he going to be a good president? Well, we know the answer to that. He's been a great president. So you throw that all away because he had a bad night, I think is dangerous.
Okay.
And unserious.
You think it's dangerous. But again, I'll ask you before I let you go. You don't think it will happen. You don't think there's going to be a broker convention.
No, there's not
Okay.
going to be a broker convention.
All right.
As much as I, find conventions fascinating, there's not going to be a broker convention.
Stuart, this has been a fascinating conversation. Look, I'm on your side.
I know you are.
I'm just saying it's tough because I know how people are reacting. And, yeah. The other thing that I wish they had brought up, because I think it's, we are living in an AI reality right now, an AI present and then an AI future. And that was not discussed on the stage. And I think that's one of the most important topics, not only in America, but the world. And that was not addressed last night.
Yeah. So you're going to have a campaign. And I think that's why we're going to have campaigns. And I think the differences are going to continue to be stark. And I think Joe Biden's going to win this relatively easily.
You think he's going to win?
Oh, yeah. No question about it.
That's the last word. Go ahead.
Public are not going to vote. A guy who's out on bail, who has been convicted, found liable of sexual assault by a hometown jury that a judge called rape, who is bragging about the fact that he took away Roe v. Wade, who wants to cut taxes for billionaires, and is talking about how he really didn't have sex with a porn star. That guy's not going to be president of the United States.
Stuart Stevens, that'll be the last word, sir. Thank you for appearing, and I hope that you'll come back. Stuart Stevens, the great Stuart Stevens, a senior advisor to the Lincoln Project. Thank you for appearing, and thank you for watching The Don Lemon Show. We will see you next time. Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Make sure you click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. And I'll see you next time.